Welcome back! And once again, you join us for non-detailing related content. Once again, we're doing something stupid in our warehouse because I've done something stupid. RWB had it for 4 or 5 weeks. You probably watched the build and thought, that's a cool car. Well done, Sam. Well, I've ruined the clutch. It's slipping so bad. It's slipping second, third, fourth gear. Now, it's difficult to generally narrow down why this has happened, but it's usually related to people trying to do burnouts in a 4-wheel drive RWB and it not really going well, and then it starts slipping and you start panicking, and then you figure out you need to drop the entire engine and gearbox all in one go, which takes a day. So yeah, I may or not have tried to do a burnout and failed. But yeah, welcome back to Sam's Detailing UK, where we do stupid shit to make our lives more complicated. Let's drop the engine. So you probably already know what a clutch is. It's a sort of friction disc that sits between the gearbox and the engine. Removing the engine itself is actually pretty straightforward because you haven't got coolant lines to worry about. Really, it's just a power steering line, a fuel line, a couple of electrical connections, and then gearbox mount, engine mounts, and basically the entire unit together will just come straight down. It should actually be pretty straightforward to do this. Fingers crossed. Let's get on with it. So of course, with the engine coming out, a couple of things we need to do first. Disconnect your battery is the obvious one because we're going to be disconnecting the starter motor. And secondly, because it's a 4-wheel drive, there's a prop shaft that runs from the front to the back, and there's 2 bolts on the top of that prop shaft which are actually accessed from the cabin. So I'm going to undo those 2 bolts first, so it's just easier when it's not on the ramp and got the doors, car open doors and all that stuff. So battery and prop shaft. It is a Phillips. I could do it. Hands out. Honestly, that's the hardest job I've ever taken on this car. That's the aircon compressor disconnected. Obviously there was no gas in the unit, so I just find it easier just to completely get rid of this, and it'll be easier to drop the engine rather than having it all connected. So yeah. That needs to come out. So the really good thing about Porsche is pretty much everything, they put it into one place. So all your wiring you're disconnecting here, fuel rail, pretty much everything is just disconnected here. Normally on different cars you'd have to disconnect all sorts of stuff, but everything just comes into one place, so you can just drop the engine. 100% sure what to do about the Sikaflex Nakai. So on the on the stock body, there's like a gasket here. You unbolt the rear bumper and it just literally comes out. Obviously, Nakai did the Sikaflex and physically attached it to the car. So I'm just going to cut the Sikaflex and then figure out the rest later. It's heavier than I thought. So we started working on the underside of the vehicular transportation system. Anti-roll bar needs to come off, and then just bits and pieces need to come off from underneath. Need to take all this off, this needs to come back. Yeah, just like all these little niggly bits need to come out. Right, so as it stands, everything's going pretty smoothly. Most of the stuff has come off. The only real struggle was getting that rear bumper off because it's Sikaflexed to the arches, so we had to slice through that sealant and get the bumper off. But yeah, not much to do now. Just need to disconnect the oil line, a couple of fuel things from the top and the power steering, and then we're pretty much ready to drop the engine. Right, so that's the engine finally out of the RWB. As I said, it's not really that much of a difficult job. No, there's no water, there's no coolant. Most of it's like compact in certain areas and it's designed to come out as a unit pretty quickly and efficiently. So yeah, that's me done for the day. Then tomorrow we're gonna crack on, remove this gearbox, replace the clutch, replace these coils and whatnot, ignition leads, and just pace through it and get it back in the car as quick as we can. Sorted. Welcome to day 2 of figuring out how to replace the clutch on my RWB. Now, here's the situation. Yesterday we removed the transmission and the gearbox as a unit, and that was lovely, it went smooth. Now it's a bit more complicated. I cannot find any tutorials on how to replace the clutch. Obviously, this is the engine, this is the transmission, the clutch is sat in between this. I need to remove this transmission, but there's like a fork that is with a pin that's sat there first. So I need to figure out how to remove the pin, the fork, then the box. So I actually figured it out pretty quickly. This shaft goes through the fork, and I removed a rubber cap, and there was a hole, and obviously you just assume a bolt can go through there. You screw the bolt in, and I managed to just leverage it out, and it came out. So now the transmission is free to come out. So this is the starter motor. This is what starts the engine. There's one more. No, I think it's just pretty tight on there. Do you know why it's simple? Because I've got all the tools. Oh, it's a little bit noisy. Oi. It's not even that worn. Oh, I hope it was the clutch that was faulty. So that sits in there, you know. That's the clutch out. It's worn slightly. It's a bit blue, which is signs of overheating from like a burnout. But no, that is actually breaking up. No, yeah, that's the good news though, DMF is fine. And I'm not going to a lighted flywheel because I can't be asked. So, this is easy. Right, time to install the clutch release bearing. You get all these washers and things. I pretty much figured out how to do it. You take the first two washers that are the same, slide that onto the clutch release bearing, like this. You take the toothed release bearing, making sure the forks are pointing upwards. Get that in there, push that on there, flip it upside down. Take the next washer, which has got that one tooth that sits in between the teeth here. And now it's just a case of compressing it down and fitting in the lock ring.
Wait, on the...
Yeah. Yeah. Is that in? Yeah. That was basically almost in. I don't think that's in. Oh, I know. I could just use a screwdriver to finish it off. Is that in? I don't... No, that's definitely not in. No, it's already out. Wait, Rosie, I think you can slip it in now. Okay, standing on it's a better way. So this clutch release bearing's a bit noisy. Whereas this one, completely smooth. Right, that's the clutch release bearing sorted out on the pressure plate. So now we just need to put everything back together. So clutch alignment tool, the clutch in, pressure plate, torque it up, get the gearbox back on. Then I've got some bits to sort out on the engine. Okay, so that's gonna go there. Okay, do this again. No, I did the tip. Let's get shaft into position. Time for this shaft to go back into that fork, like we had to pull it out, remember, with the pry bar. It's just the opposite of tapping it in. And I assume it'll be easier this time round. Gearbox is coming back out. I pulled the fork up. It moved away from the release bearing. It needs to come back out. These things happen. Right, so we fitted the clutch kit in between the engine and the gearbox, and in between that, privately, very quickly, I replaced the HT leads and the throttle cable from the pedal to the engine, because that was ripped. So now it's just a case of getting the engine back in and hope this works. Okay, engine is bolted in now. Just a little bit difficult because it's a C4 model. You need to connect the back of the gearbox, got some splines that connect to the front diff through like a prop shaft. And obviously we're coming in at that angle and we just need to get it roughly level so we can just click it in. And then suddenly it clicks in, pushes in, then everything bolts in. But it's a bit fiddly getting to that right height. And then I clamped out the engine wiring loom. I didn't put it on top of the engine, so it was stuck at the bottom, so I had to feed that through. But yeah, we're in. Had one bolt that just genuinely refused to go in. I've got absolutely no don't know why. It just literally refused to go in. It had a clear path in. I think the bolt's damaged, but I've replaced it with like an E10 or something now, so I really don't know. I don't know what to say about that. Very strange. Just weird. Weird why that bolt just simply wouldn't want to go in. Let's put the cap on it and pretend it never happened. Honestly, it's all about the resilience to getting trolled. That's it, I'm done for today. Okay, so you last saw me last week trying to get this engine and gearbox back in, and it was turning into a massive headache. Managed to get the engine and gearbox in relatively safely, had to strap the car down a bit, and then everything after that was just problem after problem after problem. I couldn't line up the transaxle bit, I couldn't line up the actuators that control the diff locks, I couldn't line up the actual bolts to get the bolts in, and then locking the transaxle, couldn't get that bolt in. Every single thing was an issue, so I was like, you know what, instead of just carrying this on, just stop. There's no rush to get this sorted. I'll just stop and come back, have a bit of a break and come back to it next week. So that's where we are now. I feel like I'm in a much better position to get this bolted together, and hopefully it will go a lot smoother. So the plan now is to fill the engine with oil, start it up, make sure everything's working and we're happy, and then we'll fit all the rest of the ancillaries after we're happy. Not a good start. Surprise. Fair enough, Samad. I can now do clutch changes. That's genuinely surprising. Especially with all the shit. You know, once the camera was off, I changed all of just a lot of ignition stuff. And last time I changed the ignition stuff was on that Merc, and how did that end up? Oh. Okay, so majority of it's back together. Now, got the rear bumper on, and as you remember, I had to cut the seam seal that Nakai did on the rear bumper. So I'm now gonna have to replicate that same seal to make it look proper, because you can see where I've cut it and ripped it and stuff. So this is me trying to do Nakai's work. Oh. It would have been perfect if that masking tape didn't lift. Okay, we can live with that. I think that's all right. No, I'm not going to touch that. I think that's fine. Double check underneath. Double check underneath. Bleed the power steering. Wheels on. Check if it moves. It moves. First in gear, reverse. The clutch bite is so much lower now. And honestly, changing all the ignition coils is so much smoother as well. This needs a proper test drive, This feels so much nicer. It feels like a different car. Right, so that's the first time I've ever changed the clutch, and it was actually a success. I can't believe that. And also, changing all the ignition leads, car is so much better. So it's actually not that hard to do a clutch change on this car. Drop in the engine, split the gearbox, clutch, put it back in. A little bit frustrating putting it back in, but stuff happens, you know. So yeah, next thing to do is now to detail this car, because this bad boy is off to wax stop. So stay tuned.